Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Josh,
I'm Justin.
and this is Roll the Reel. Roll it. Okay, so we are doing Batman v Superman this time around.
All right, so this is starting out, kicking off a new franchise. Well, not new franchise, but new universe, rather. We got a new Batman, not connected to the beloved or hated Dark Knight series that we've had over the past couple years. And is this a continue? Yeah, of course. And then Superman, he's not new. He's the same Superman as Man of Steel.
Yeah, this is the second movie in the DC Extended Universe. This is supposed to be the rival to Marvel, and this is technically a sequel to Man of Steel.
But so the movie starts off with which part does it start with? Oh yeah, we got a nice opening cinematic of Bruce Wayne as a kid.
Yeah, it's a retread over Bruce Wayne's parents dying again. You've seen this story
You
many
always
times.
got to hear about him dying. That's what makes him Batman,
But
the angry orphan.
But that's the thing. It's a staple of pop culture. Everybody should know that Bruce Wayne's parents die. But I don't know. We may be getting ahead of ourselves. We're gonna start with technical stuff first. I want to say that technically this movie looks really good in spots. Like, there's a lot of CGI, maybe a little bit too much overuse, but there are scenes where it works to its advantage, and part of the lighting isn't very well done, but I'll give director Zack Snyder this: he knows how to frame scenes. Because in the beginning of the movie, where they show Bruce Wayne's parents being shot again, it was pretty well done technically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could argue it's a little pretentious, but it was pretty well done technically, even though spoilers, by the way. Bye. That even though they show some weird thing where bats are lifting Bruce Wayne into the light, it's like, what?
Yeah, that was a little bit weird.
It's like you made Superman kind of this Jesus figure in Man of Steel, and now what? You're making Batman Jesus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know what you're talking about with the CGI. I got a couple weird points in it. There's one part during the final fight scene where Superman uses his laser vision and he turns his head, and it kind of looked for a second like his laser eyes stayed in one place, and all of a sudden they jerked with his head.
Oh, they were floating? I didn't notice that. I gotta say though, when Superman's eyes are lit up, he looks kind of evil.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of something that I am detriment with this movie, that they make Superman kind of an asshole. And he's not supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they kind of make Batman an asshole too, which he's Batman. He's kind of naturally an asshole, but at the same time,
it's a little too extreme.
Yeah, it bounces back and forth between Superman's the good guy, Batman's the bad guy, and Batman's the good guy, Superman's the bad guy. It jumps back and forth kind of between making one side look good and making one side look like they're starting to become more evil, but then it switches around. It does that several times throughout the movie.
Yeah, that's one thing that the movie's kind of like. It's not really focused. There's a lot of scenes that just jump from one thing to another, back to another, and then to another. It just doesn't feel focused. And I'm not coming from this from a Marvel bias, because I'll admit that there's a couple of Marvel movies that are kind of unfocused. Iron Man 2 and Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I love these movies, but I will admit that they can be really unfocused. They're not perfect movies, and I'm going to retract what I was saying earlier to Justin in the car. I thought this was a bad movie with good scenes. I'm not going to say it's an overall bad movie, but it's not the greatest movie. I think that they rushed things too much with this. They didn't focus up like they should have. And it's just, it's nerve-wracking. But on the upside, there are a lot of good scenes in this movie. I found enjoyment in this movie. I'm not going to say it's a perfect movie, but you can find enjoyment in this movie. This would that makes it worth it.
Yeah, there's definitely some glaring flaws, even though I really liked it. Lois Lane, especially towards the end of the movie, she's a giant pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Every time it switches from an action scene to a Lois Lane scene, you're like, oh great, Lois Lane's on the camera again. Even though we just had close to 7-8 minutes of action, she's still standing in the same spot where we left her 8 minutes ago, and she's gonna do another 15 seconds of walking around or staring at the sky and then go back to the fighting. It's really unnecessary in some parts.
You can basically blame it on the script, because Amy Adams did okay. I thought she did pretty good. And Ben Affleck, he was everybody was right. He was pretty good as the character of Batman. The characterization of Batman, that's another story. Not too fond of the ways that Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio and David S. Goyer handled the character of Batman. Because you know how Batman's always supposed to be the guy that can take that extra step but doesn't? Because the Nolan movies demonstrated this pretty well, where they always had Batman almost cross that line of killing somebody, but he didn't. You know for a fact that Batman kills people in this movie.
Oh yeah, Batman killed a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people.
And
this is not constant mercy Batman, like whenever he's fighting Bane in the middle of the street and everyone's punching each other even though everyone has guns.
Well, remember when in The Dark Knight Rises, when he first meets Catwoman on the rooftop, he's like, no guns, no killing. And she's like, where's the fun in that? Well, I guess Ben Affleck's Batman saw that and he was like, yeah, where is the fun in that? Kabam, kabam, kabam.
And not only does he have several kills that are based on a car blowing up or something because he shot it with his Batmobile, but there's several parts that aren't like dreams or flashbacks or whatever.
Yeah, there's dream sequences in this movie.
Yeah, there's dream sequences, but there's several parts where it's actual combat where Batman, gets somebody in, the gun hold where he's got him in the arm, except he actually uses the gun to shoot people. He actually
uses the gun.
And he shoots people.
There's a scene in a warehouse, which we'll get back to this warehouse scene, because this warehouse scene was actually pretty cool. There's a scene where Batman has this dude that has this rifle that's something you'd see on the side of an airplane that's flying above the air, that's going shooting those sabot rounds down. And he's got it aimed at this guy with a flamethrower, and he's like, the dudes with the flamethrowers like, I'm gonna use it, and Batman's like, I believe you. Bam! And he shoots the flamethrower pack, and the flamethrower pack explodes and completely it decimates this room of goons. And I'm like, Batman would not do that. Mm-hmm. And some people, whoever comes across this, would say, well, in the Tim Burton movies he killed people. Yes, and not too fond of that part of it either. I love Batman and Batman Returns, but I still think that he shouldn't have killed people in that. And that's where Zack Snyder should have learned from that Batman does not kill. I know this is supposed to be his vision, but in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, some aspects of characters need to be maintained whenever they are translated from comic to screen. Mm-hmm. But like I said, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and a lot of the movie does focus on, like I said, going back and forth between who's evil and who's not. But a lot of, with Batman, it's him slowly becoming more angry and him slowly letting that anger guide his vision. But that's the thing, you kind of see Batman grow a little bit more extreme in his views throughout the movie. But then it's not like he killed the people out of anger, out of his extreme views. He just killed the people because they were there. It wasn't because the plot was advanced. It's because that's how they wanted to portray Batman. He kills people now.
And like I said, I disagree with the way Zack Snyder handled Batman in that regard. But on paper, I can see how it works, because at the beginning of the movie, they do a recap of the ending of Man of Steel, which was very controversial. But I love the way they did it, because you got to see this again, but from a different perspective. And after you see Bruce Wayne's perspective of Man of Steel's ending where Zod and General Zod and Superman are duking it out Dragon Ball Z style, and he sees all of these buildings collapse. And one of the buildings is actually his, and he's trying to get people evacuated out of the building, but they didn't get out in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can kind of see what they were going for with that, and that's why Batman was so, I'm mad at the world, I'm going to kill everybody and all that, because I witnessed something that could potentially destroy us all. But still, Batman is not supposed to cross that line.
I really did like the fight scene, but there's a final fight scene between Batman and Superman, and then without saying anything, there's a final fight scene.
No, spoilers.
Oh, well, okay, Doomsday comes. Well,
yeah, they turn General Zod into
before
Doomsday.
that, the actual fight scene between Batman and Superman, it's pretty cool.
It was brutal. And
there was a couple things that didn't make sense.
Well, it's like here's where Batman was being an asshole. It's like Superman actually came to him and said, I gotta tell you something, okay? And Batman's like, I don't want to hear it. Boom! And punches him right in the face, and then he douses him with kryptonite gas.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a couple things that didn't make sense in it. Batman uses 2 traps whenever Superman gets there. He uses a smoke screen, and then he uses that doesn't work, so he uses a bunch of Gatling guns and missile launchers. Well, we already know Superman's invincible to that kind of stuff.
That takes away the tension.
Yeah, but then after that, he uses a grenade launcher loaded with kryptonite gas. If you really wanted to just straight up kill Superman, the first trap he stepped on with the smoke screen gas, why wasn't that kryptonite gas?
Batman, basically, if Lois Lane had not stopped him, because there's a scene where Batman is about to basically murder Superman, and the only thing that stops him is Superman says, "You got to save Martha!" And that's a plot point, is Batman's mother and Superman's mother both named Martha. Not sure how to feel about the way they handled that. For those of you who have seen the movie, I leave that to your discretion. I don't know. How do you think they handled that?
I didn't know that, so it was kind of interesting. But at the same time, it's like that's what Superman was trying to tell him the whole time, and all of a sudden,
and then that's what makes Batman his buddy.
It's not like Superman says that, and it's not like Batman stops and listens to him and be like, okay, that makes sense.
No.
He says, oh, my mom's name's, or Lois Lane says, his name's Martha too, and Batman goes super emo bat boy and like falls down and pretty much almost starts crying, and that's what stops the fight scene. It's not like, oh, your mom's, who's Martha? And he's like, they got my mom.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Had Lois Lane not stepped in and said, his mother's name is Martha, after he was like, who's your Martha? Batman was going to straight up kill Superman. And it's like, what are you doing?
Gangster spear.
A spear made of kryptonite. It's like, what are you doing? This is not how Batman is supposed to be generally. Because I've heard people mention it in some comics, Batman does wield guns and Batman does kill people. But I've also heard somebody say in the majority of comics, Batman does not kill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry I keep harping on that.
And and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not every superhero needs to kill people. Superheroes, of course some comic fans are going to freak out on this, but superheroes have generally always been non-lethal. Over the broad scope of things, of course we got characters like Deadpool where that's obviously not true. Don't call me a hero, as he would say.
Yeah.
But generally, a large group of superheroes aren't necessarily lethal. They're just about stopping the bad guy.
Well, and then those are the most compelling. Now, don't get me wrong. There can be superheroes that kill people like Captain America and Iron Man that can still be compelling. But I think the ones that are the most compelling are the ones that can take that extra step but choose not to.
Yeah, which
because
Batman doesn't take until the very end of the movie.
I mean,
he's taking those steps all the way until he's about to jump off the cliff.
I mean, this is a phrase that's said by a Marvel character that could work for all superhero characters. With great power comes great responsibility. And Batman knows that he has power to kill because of his gadgetry and stuff like that. But he chooses not to because he knows it's his responsibility to be better than the man that killed his parents with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And just like with Superman, and this is kind of bringing back the ending of Man of Steel where Superman snaps General Zod's neck. Superman knows he has all this power, but because he knows he has all this power and what it can lead to, he polices himself in a way to where he has the responsibility not to take that extra step. Because what does it accomplish?
Exactly.
I think we basically covered technical, because it's if you know Zack Snyder movies, you know you're going for kind of an artistic movie. It's kind of more style over substance, and that kind of hurts the movie a little bit. Let's go into a couple more characters we haven't touched up on. Like, we've done Batman, we've done Superman, kind of touched on Lois Lane, but there's not really much to talk about there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
she's pretty much a plot advancer.
Yeah, she's a plot device to the extreme in this movie. Before we get to my main concern with this movie, let's talk about Wonder Woman.
I kind of liked her. I didn't realize what they were doing until...
You didn't know that was Wonder Woman this whole time?
No, I didn't.
She doesn't say much in the movie, so it's hard to really get a read on her character. But
she's a badass.
Yeah, she was badass. Gal Gadot did really good with the action scenes, and she really looks the part.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't give her enough dialogue to work with or any meaningful kind of character building moments, so we don't really know too much about her character. But I'm echoing a sentiment by a couple of people I follow on YouTube that this kind of makes me excited for the Wonder Woman movie. And actually, now that we are on Wonder Woman, a couple of story elements revolve around her character that don't really work for me. It's not necessarily her character itself, it's what Bruce Wayne sends to her character. So, when I say that this movie feels unfocused and is kind of jumbled and things just feel thrown in there just for the sake of being thrown in there, because you gotta admit, DC's trying to play catch up with Marvel. Marvel is about to release their 13th movie with Civil War, and this is DC's technically second movie. And so, they kind of pulled an Iron Man 2 with throwing all of these references in there to their so-called Avengers moment.
Mm-hmm.
But, Bruce Wayne breaks into a party being held by Lex Luthor. We'll get to him. And he sets up this modem that's supposed to steal all this information for him to decrypt later. Well, Wonder Woman steals that box and then ends up giving it back to Bruce Wayne. And all she was trying to do was just take a picture off of it, so it's kind of meaningless. Because she didn't get the picture off of it. So that just felt like something that could have been left out. And, but Bruce Wayne decrypts the hard drive and finds out about other metahumans and finds out Wonder Woman has been this metahuman that's been alive for at least 100 years. And he sends her the files, and it's all of these different scenes for a few Justice League members, and they have the logos on these video files. And it's like, okay, kind of on the nose there. And so they show one of Aquaman where he is hiding inside this shipwreck, and he's like pointing his trident at this camera and then shoots off with a sonic boom underwater. And then they show the Flash in this convenience store where he stops a robbery. And then they show Cyborg. And it's just, I know why you're doing this. You're trying to play catch up, but this has nothing to do with the movie at hand, and I'll tell you why. Because during this scene, Superman is being threatened because his mother's been kidnapped. And so he shoots off to fight Batman because Lex Luthor is holding his mother hostage, and if he doesn't fight the Batman, then Lex Luthor is going to kill his mother. And so he flies off to challenge Batman. And you think the next scene is going to be, okay, Superman's floating above Batman, and Batman's like, Tell me, do you bleed? You will. Let's fight. And that'd be it. But no, they have to split that in half and shoehorn this scene in of Wonder Woman checking out these video files of Justice League setups, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it was bad to put in there because they do have a lot of catch up to do. They just put it at the wrong time in the movie, literally interrupting a fight scene for it. Just like how they kept interrupting the fight scene for Lois Lane walking around.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do it. It, could have been put in a better part of the movie.
And then
there were a couple of weird things, like I pointed out. Josh says that happens in the comics, which I haven't read, but they nuke Superman for pretty much like no reason. It goes from they're fighting Doomsday, and then within a minute and a half, the president and Security Council are like, yeah, they're high enough in the atmosphere. Let's just go and nuke Superman and Doomsday. It's like, okay, it's a superhero showdown. Superman really didn't need to get nuked by the government. It was just kind of thrown in there for no reason.
Yeah, and they do the whole cliche, God help us, as they launch the nuke. Remember in Independence Day where Bill Pullman's like, nuke the bastards, and then he gets into the control room when they're about to do it, and he's like, may God have mercy on our children, or something like that, or may our children forgive us for this grievance. Mm-hmm. It's just that little cliche. But yeah, okay, let's get to the elephant in the room. Lex Luthor.
Kind of weird.
Hate it.
Weird guy.
Not anything against the actor Jesse Eisenberg, but I could tell from the first trailer that we see him in, I was not going to like this.
I didn't really know what to expect from his character, considering I'm definitely more of a Captain America kind of guy than Superman guy, but he was kind of weird.
He was too eccentric.
Mm-hmm. Twitchy.
I know things are supposed to be different between adaptations, so things don't get jumbled together and seem like they're the same thing. But this was the wrong way to go about it, Zack Snyder. Did you watch the animated series where they had Clancy Brown voicing Lex Luthor? That was an intimidating Lex Luthor. He was megalomaniac. He was a billionaire. He was brilliant. He was methodical. You bought him as a credible threat.
Yeah, this Lex Luthor...
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. This Lex Luthor feels like Superman could flick him with his finger and that'd be it.
And there were several times he could have, but he just didn't for some reason. But, yeah, he doesn't seem so much as like a brooding villain throughout it, nor does he seem like crazy like the Joker. He just seems weird, and all of a sudden at the end of the movie, he's like, oh, well, the the senator won't let me have kryptonite, so I'm going to create this giant, ultra, super human from Krypton out of General Zod's DNA and destroy the entire world.
After he bombed the Senate trying to make it look like Superman.
Yeah, he didn't seem crazy, and he didn't seem threatening. He just seemed weird. There was really no build-up to why he did it.
And it's like he
didn't even have a moment where he's just kind of weird and then something happens to him, so he just snaps and decides to turn bad. He's just weird. Just weird.
And it's like Lex Luthor is just there. He's just there. You don't know anything about his character aside from clunky exposition he spouts off here and there. And you don't really understand, aside from maybe a little bit of a jealousy about Superman having powers and he doesn't. So, God complex. You don't understand why Lex Luthor has it out for Superman. And then he's like, Superman, go kill Batman. Why? Because he stole kryptonite from you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
That's like, what did he plan whenever Superman got back with Batman's head?
I mean, yeah. It's
Batman's gonna stomp me into the ground now for kidnapping, or Superman's gonna stomp me into the ground now for kidnapping his mom.
Yeah, you make a good point. What was Lex Luthor's idea? I mean, Yeah, he was in the background getting Doomsday all prepped up, but what if Superman interrupted that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are you going to do, Lex? He's going to sit in a jail cell and go, ding, 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 ding.
No, he's going to sit...
Ding, 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 ding,
he's going to
ding.
sit 50,000 leagues under the sea whenever Superman, keeps pummeling him into the Earth's core for taking his mom.
Well, not anymore, because Superman's dead. Superman is dead. Did you hear me, audience? Superman is dead. Because they have Doomsday stab him in the chest before he dies. And the funny thing is, it's Wonder Woman's fault.
Mm-hmm.
She cut off Doomsday's hand, and in turn, that grew out the little spike thing. And Doomsday's like, Superman bad, kill.
Yeah, I didn't really like that at the end. Not necessarily that Superman's not dead, because we have superhero comebacks from death all the time. But instead of just having, like, the dirt lightly shift on his coffin, like, oh, maybe Superman's coming back for the sequel, it's like the dirt starts floating in the air off his coffin.
They did the Magneto moment, because remember at the end of X-Men 3, you think Magneto no longer has his powers, and he twitches his hand like that, and the chest piece goes like that. And it's like, oh, okay. But
okay, that's there.
No, here's the thing I have about the ending. They do the death of Superman in the second movie of their universe, and you're thinking, why did you do that so early on? That could have been something meaningful like 10 movies in. Because, we're speculating that Captain America may die in Civil War?
He better not. I'm going to be pissed.
But at the end of the movie, they have two separate funerals, one for Clark Kent and the other for Superman. Superman's casket is empty, but the way they treat this funeral for Superman, I'm almost thinking, are they doing this for Captain America? But and then they have that one for Clark Kent in Smallville, and that was a little touching.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would have had more dramatic weight to it and more tragic weight to it if it had been in a much later movie. Because as they were playing the scene out, I was piecing it together. I was thinking, this actually works if it's not the second movie of the franchise. Because this is Superman.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when they...
Superman.
Well, it's like one of the things that they complained about at the end of the second Star Trek movie that came out 2-3 years ago was that they killed Kirk and then brought him back, and it's like, okay, you kind of blew that load there. Mm-hmm. So if you try to kill him again, it's not going to have any heft to it. But yeah, I feel kind of bad. I sound like I'm completely bashing this movie, and in some ways I am, because despite what some people may think, oh, you're a Marvel fanboy, Marvel bias. Yeah, I have Marvel bias because they have given us a universe that we can follow along. And I was hoping DC would have done that. Yeah, they're trying to make their own formula up. They're trying not to copy Marvel. But in a sense, you can say I'm wrong, and I may be. They kind of have to. You have to have separate solo movies for these heroes. Get us introduced to them. Let us grow with them. Let us feel for them. Then do this big team-up movie. Or heck, you can do a couple of solos, then do Batman v Superman, where it's kind of a mini team-up movie, then do another couple of solos, and then have your Justice League movie.
And like in Captain America Civil War coming up, it's kind of justifiable for them to kind of throw in Spider-Man and Black Panther at once, just because they already kind of have something rolling.
Well, not really Spider-Man and Black Panther. And I'm going to say this, so I'm not sounding Marvel fanboy biased, whatever. I'm just worried Captain America may fall into that same trap that Batman v Superman fell into, where it's multiple characters trying to shoehorn too much in. And I hope Captain America handles it better. But there are good things in this movie. I enjoyed myself. I didn't sit there thinking the whole time, well, I want to get out of here. I hate this movie. Death to it all. No, I had fun with this movie. And don't let what I say alter your opinion. And just because I'm saying negative things about the movie, don't label me as something, because I'm not. I'm just telling my opinion. And you need to learn to have an opinion of your own without saying, oh, that person's opinion's bad. They don't know anything. And yeah, I'm sounding snooty right now because I'm tired of people bashing people for having their own opinion about this movie. Okay? But I've said my piece. I'm off my soapbox. You got any closing argument?
I thought it was pretty good. It did have some flaws, but that wasn't too bad.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I will buy this on Blu-ray because there are scenes in it that I want to watch again.
We had heated seats in the movie theater.
That was a pretty good movie-going experience. But forgive me for getting kind of angry there. I'm tired of seeing fanboys that can't take their blinders off. And I'll admit I've been guilty of this in the past. But you got to learn how to take your blinders off and see things critically. And that's basically it. And forgive me if I echo any sentiments that you've heard from other reviewers, because I've seen a lot of people review this movie already. But my main goal here is to just say how I felt about the movie. Hopefully I didn't let that change my opinion, because I tried to go into this with an open mind, tried to push that all out. And like I said, movie has flaws, but there are a lot of good things in this movie. The sad thing is the good things couldn't overshadow the flaws. But don't take my word for it. Don't take Justin's word for it. Just go see the movie yourself. Make your own opinion.
Go watch it.
Have a good time. Woo! But I think overall, I got to develop a rating system for the movies that we review. But I'm not gonna say that this is something that you have to really hold up on the highest pedestal ever. But I would give this movie a good theater-going experience.
I'd give it like a 3.5 out of 5. There we go.
There you go.
It's nothing that's gonna blow your hair back, but it's worth going to see.
All right.
It's not Battlefield Earth.
You had to bring that in. I mean, this is completely off topic, even though it's a Warner Brothers movie. But okay, we've rambled on long enough. Battery's about to die. For anybody who comes across this video, thank you for joining us. I've been Josh.
I'm Justin.
And this was Roll the Reel. So we will see you at the next movie. Have a good one.